Greetings, warriors. This is your Master Wizard Walt here for yet another Academy group coaching call. Today is April 7th, 2024. So, first call in about, I don't know, 2 weeks or so, 3 weeks or so. So, welcome back to the realm of Infinite via Zoom. Glad to have you here, Mark, Danny, and Olia. Anyone else who's watching the recording right now, welcome, welcome. Today's going to be a fun one. I'm going to get straight into it today. Today's lesson, I'm going to be going over the path of growth and sustainability. What that step by step process is like on your fitness journey indefinitely. What is that process? What's that lifestyle of growth and sustainability? How do you make progress and growth in whichever areas that you choose to grow in your health and fitness journey? And how do you sustain those results while also going down the path of continued growth, right? One of the biggest mistakes that I've personally made in my journey was go through this vicious cycle of setting goals and trying to achieve them, and then basically throwing all those results down the garbage by either trying to attempt new goals or just not knowing how to sustain the results for the long term. So, a lot of my progress when I first started my fitness journey was a lot of 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, in some cases, 3 steps back. Um, declining over a longer period of time rather than inclining over a longer period of time. So I'm going to be diving deeper into that in a moment. But first, I want to kind of give you all some quick tips to get the best out of this experience here in the academy. I was very fortunate enough to start up the academy back in early 2022. So we've had a lot of warrior students come through the academy, and the experience has evolved, of course, for the benefit of all of our academy members. So there's definitely a lot of patterns of behavior that I think can serve you all on a week to week basis as far as maximizing your progress, maximizing your learning, and of course, maximizing your results here in the academy. And a lot of that stemmed from a lot of my experiences in other online courses or all other online group courses that I was in. So here's just some quick tips to really get the best out of your experience here in the academy. Number one, as you all already know, um, the online course aspect is one of the most engaging, most important aspects, right? Making sure that you're either accessing it either via your phone through our mobile app or online at any moment throughout the day, right? Having that in the forefront of your mind to log into the app and that experience is going to be very important, especially making sure that you check off your daily quests. So, your daily quests are an easy and simple way to make sure you're staying aligned with the key areas that you want to keep tracking throughout your fat loss experience here in the academy. For example, step count is one of those big things, right? Tracking, water, sleep, kind of the things that we do every day, but we don't really kind of focus on the specifics as far as how we are performing throughout the day. So the daily quests are very, very important. Make sure you're checking off your daily quests, or at least trying to, or creating that intention of trying to complete your daily quests, because those small micro wins add up over time, and you can also develop massive streaks like Mark is, for the step count. So shout out to you, Mark, on the awesome consistency checking off your daily quests. Good job. So that's number one, daily quests. Number two is a an expression that I've learned or saying that I've learned. Uh, I forgot who I learned it from, but basically, it's questions lead to answers, and I think it's a little bit of stoicism in a way, but basically, uh, always questioning, anything that you're learning or anything that you want to learn more deeply. And the process of questions or questioning something actually does a lot from a psychological standpoint. For one, it is actually allowing you to gain more clarity. So, one of the biggest things that I teach inside the academy is journaling, right? And part of the reason why I recommend a resource like, for example, the High Performance Planner is simply because the way it's structured is it asks you specific questions. And when you ask yourself specific questions, you get specific answers, right? And when you repeat this behavior repeatedly over and over and over again, the quality of the answers actually improves. So, for example, when I first started answering these questions, a lot of the questions that I've taught you in the academy, these were like one word answers. Like, I didn't really know what to write. I basically never wrote anything down for majority of my life. Uh, I never was a note taker when I was in school. Even when I was in college, I had one notebook when I was in college, and I still have that notebook till this day. And it's kind of funny when I open it, because I got my degree. I had a pretty good GPA, but I wasn't much of a note taker. So the act or the behavior of writing things down and answering questions was like foreign to me. But when I repeated this behavior consistently, I noticed the quality of the answers started to improve. As I started to think from different perspectives, as I started to gain more clarity of what I'm trying to get out of answering these questions. But the same goes here for the academy. So, something that I found to work very, very well in other online courses and just the experience years ago when we first launched the academy is having each person in the academy come in with just one big question of the week. So this is something that I absolutely want to implement moving forward. And the best way for us to do that is to drop it in the Discord channel, so the questions channel. I'd have a notification set up inside Discord where you can drop your question of the week. Feel free to actually drop it at any moment throughout the week so that I can also address it during our calls. And what this is going to do is whatever you're learning, whether that's completing a quest, whether that's, something you learn outside of the academy that you just have a question about, we can dive a little bit deeper into it and extract a lot of learning and a lot of value and of course number one a lot more clarity so that you can really leave this each week or at least this call every week with something that you just learned more about, something that you learned more deeply about, you know? So this is something that is going to be so valuable for you guys because it was very, very valuable for me when I had to actually sit down and think of a quality question, Uh, and then when I would ask my mentors this question, it allowed them to really kind of dive deeper and actually talk about things that I would have never even thought about, right? So, questions lead to answers. So that's number two. So, moving forward, I really want to emphasize that question channel inside Discord so we can get you questions answered and add more clarity. Um, Real quick, Danny, you said I don't really get the planner thing. So yeah, I'll absolutely dive deeper into that towards the end of the call. But if you have any more questions regarding the planner, let me know. Drop it in the chat, and I'll dive a little bit deeper in a moment. So number one, daily quests. Number two, questions. Um, Number three, I'm going to really kind of clump it into a big category, and that's pretty much goal setting. So when it comes to goal setting, it's one of those things where it's like you might have a big goal in your mind of either how you want to look, how you want to feel, whether that's a weight goal, whatever that may be. And when it comes to goal setting, it's not just about that end goal, it's about the process, right? So when it comes to setting goals, the best way for us to do that is number one, by doing the checkpoints. So the monthly checkpoints are designed in a way so that you can be aligned with what you can accomplish on a month to month basis. And by doing that, you can then add up to a ton of progress on a month to month basis instead of getting so focused 3 months down the road, 4 months down the road, and so on and so forth. It's one of those great opportunities to reflect on your actions and your behavior that you've had throughout the month, right, the good and the bad, you know, and on a more, I guess, tangible and more deeper level, it's also what we're doing with the start, stop, continue on a week to week basis. So in a way, what everything that we are doing here in the academy is designed around something that's going to benefit you over the long term. So the start, stop, continue is the week to week. On the day to day, it's the daily quests. On the month to month, it's the checkpoints. And of course, in the long term, it's the big goals or the big achievements that we have in the dashboard of your course. So all these things are there as like little mini checkpoints or ways to have your focus towards specific goals, objectives throughout the day, week, month, and so on. So all that being said, those three things combined into one are going to really completely change how you progress on a day-to-day basis throughout the academy. If we implement these things moving forward, so maybe you haven't been doing much of either one or all of these things, this is how you can really make massive changes, right? Because if you're learning, you're taking action, you're asking questions, you're keeping track of your progress, right? And you're following through with the program, you're going to get results. So, top three things to maximize your time here inside of the academy. Let me know if that was helpful to you. Give me a thumbs up in the chat before we dive into today's lesson. Cool. Again, drop any questions that you have in the chat. I'll address them at the end of the call here. Let's dive into today's lesson. I already basically outlined it, so it's going to be pretty straightforward. So shouldn't take too long. Should probably take 10 or 15 or so minutes. I'm going to share my screen here and dive a little bit deeper. All right. Can everybody see the screen here? Cool. Thank you for dropping Mark's question in Discord, Olia. So, growth, sustainability, progression. So, like I mentioned before, how do you go down this path of growth without sacrificing sustainability? And then how do you also go down the path of sustainability without sacrificing growth? I broke this down to a phasic approach, going from phases 1 through 4. And this is a much bigger picture, at least within Infinite, on how we approach this. Um, so basically, how we create the infinite in Infinite, right? Because we stand for infinite growth, infinite health, and infinite sustainability, right? There's no point of making massive growth if you can't sustain it, and there's also no point of um, sustaining either a current state without growing, right? There's a there's an expression of if you're not growing, you're dying, and it's a little harsh in my opinion. I don't really like that saying too much. But I think the key takeaway, the key aspect of it is that there's some area of growth to be had in some area of our life. You know, it doesn't have to be just in one thing. Health is multifaceted, fitness is multifaceted, you know, and every other aspect of our life, you know, whether that's our relationships, you know, our learning, you know, how we're challenging ourselves, are all areas of growth that evolve as we get older and as we experience new things. So to the left here, we have phase one, which is the growth, which is basically the growth stage, right? Everybody here has uh, been in the growth stage. Actually, everyone here is in the growth stage to a certain extent. So this is the beginning, right? This is the beginning of you setting a goal on going down the path. So within Infinite, we have 4-month programs, right? And within those programs, we have everyone choose one mastery, which is one primary fitness goal. And the reason why we only have one primary fitness goal is if you start trying to chase two goals, then now you're limiting growth, right? Because you can't uh, chase two rabbits, right? Because then you'll end up basically catching none. So the progress uh, that you're looking for is never truly achieved because you're almost like distracted by one thing or the other. So, one mastery, one class, which is your training style. So, we stick to one particular training style, again, so that you're not chasing two rabbits and catching none. And then, of course, one mode or modality, which we have three at Infinite: Mentorship, Academy, and the Gauntlet. And this is basically the growth stage. So, this is basically phase one, where you have a clear system or a program to get you from where you are now to a significant amount of progress and results in the 4-month time frame in whatever mastery that you choose. So everybody here has chosen the fat loss mastery. I hope so. But now what happens next, right? And we had a little bit of this conversation in a previous academy call, as far as like that step-by-step process of what to do after the academy. If you missed that, then I recommend going back into the recording and getting your ascension experience points by rewatching that video. But this is more of like the broader standpoint of more long term, right? Growth and sustainability isn't just in a 4-month time frame. So phase two is sustainability or growth. So let's first talk about the sustainability path. So the sustainability path is very similar to the growth path, where you're also going through a 4-month program or 4-month time frame. But the big difference here is that there's only one mastery when it comes to sustainability, and that is what we call at Infinite recomposition. And basically, what recomposition is it's in a controlled increase or decrease in either one of the other masteries. For example, for fat loss, right? For fat loss, when it comes to recomposition, what happens after a fat loss phase is all of our hormones, our metabolism, and all the processes that down regulate from losing body fat basically are disrupted. So, number one being your metabolism, right? Everything slows down. Our bodies don't like to be in a state of essentially starving our fat away, right? It wants abundance, it wants excess, right? That's why we store a lot of body fat and store a lot of energy. So, what happens is when people go through a fat loss phase, they typically don't know what to do to sustain those results, right? A lot of people either uh, completely drop the habits that got them to where they are today, for example, and they basically just go revert back to their old self, right? Because if you completely stop the habits and the behavior that got you your results, you're just going to kind of go back to where you were before, right? So that's one big problem. Another big problem is um, some people just simply don't know what to do to get their hormones back up to a stable level, to upregulate and increase their metabolism, right? Without sacrificing their results, right? So often, what a lot of people do is they go into a bulking phase or a muscle building phase, right? But if you don't learn the sustainable practices of maintaining a lower body fat percentage, what can often happen is these people who transition directly into a muscle building or bulking phase, they regain all of that body fat that they just lost. So, in a way, you're almost throwing away the results that you've earned in that first phase, right? You're almost like trading it in for something else. So it's like you have all this, body fat that's gone. It's now like you're trying to take it back and replace it with some more muscle. And this is why people go through what they call is yo-yo dieting, up and down, right? One moment they're on a diet, next thing you know, they're eating whatever they want because they're bulking. And this is an unsustainable way to approach growth and sustainability. So, what is sustainable? Well, going through a phase of what we call as recomposition, or in other words, it's teaching you how to maintain your newfound results, right? And typically in Infinite, we have this in a 4-month plan, just like the growth phase. We also have a class component to it as well, where you can change your training style a little bit, right, to switch things up, right? But ultimately, the primary goal or the primary mastery is recomposition. And currently, the only way that we offer this in Infinite is through mentorship. Um, we do plan on having a whole entire academy based on this down the road because it's essential and it's important, along with muscle building and other masteries as well. But this is kind of the basic approach that you want to go from going from phase one, which is growth, to phase two, which is sustainability. Now, the second part of this, right, which is also another option, is going into the growth phase again. So we call this the ascension. And basically, what that is, it's either one of two things: repeating phase one, which is what we just talked about before, right? And in the process of repeating phase one, you're keeping the same mastery. So, for example, fat loss. So, you're continuing the fat loss plan with the same class, in the same mode. So in this example would be the barbarian class or the academy mode, right? And I believe this is what Mark, you are currently on right now, the ascension path. So you're on phase 2B path, to be specific. And there's a lot of great reasons to do this. Simply put, is perhaps you have really long term goals, right? Maybe it's going to take more than 4 months to get to your goals. This is where you continue that progression, right? Because I wish I could say that everyone's going to hit their goals in 4 months, but that's not always the case. Right? I had several 300-pound plus clients. I wish I could say, hey, you could lose 150 pounds in 4 months, right? No. Um, that's not going down the path of sustainability, right? So that's that intermediary, that's that intersection. Is once you go through that growth phase and you make significant amount of progress in the specific mastery class and mode that you're in, you can either pivot and go into a recomposition or sustainability phase, or you can continue your growth. And again, this is really up to the individual. There's no one size fits all. Um, it really is dependent on your own personal goals and what you were able to achieve in the first phase, and so on and so forth. So it's very, very personalized and individualized. If you have any questions on this, again, drop it in the chat. I'll make sure to address it. But going into phase 3 here, this is very important. This is where, again, depending on your choices in phases 1, 2A or 2B, you can either go through a growth phase or a sustainability phase, right? So basically, for phase 3, growth, you repeat phase 1. So you basically choose a mastery, choose a class, and choose another mode. And this is why we designed it this way, uh, at Infinite at least, is repeating the same thing over and over again gets boring, it gets mundane, and it actually, you know, it doesn't help when it comes to long-term progression, right? That's why we have different goals, right? Different masteries. So I have different classes, different ways that you can approach training, right? And also different modes to, you know, throw in different experiences that you can have of learning and challenging yourself, right? And when you combine all these together, you have dozens and dozens of combinations uh, from classes, masteries, and modes and combinations of all of these different things. So in phase 3, you can go through that growth process again by repeating phase 1, again by either going through the same mastery, the same class, or same mode, which we call again ascension, right? If you just really want to dial in and continue getting results in your one mastery, that's an option. Or you can choose a completely different path, right? New mastery, new class, new mode, and then kind of go down that process. And again, this is something that I've personally done multiple times. A lot of our warriors have gone through this progression as well. And there is another option as well, again, depending on your choices, which is phase 3B, sustainability, right? So if you're somebody who just wants to sustain your results over the long term, right, then this is where you can also pivot to, right? Sometimes we have seasons of growth and sometimes you have seasons of just sustainability, right? Maybe you just want to focus on other areas of your personal life or your career, or family, whatever that may be, right? I wish we can constantly be in this constant state of growth, but when it comes to what we do to set ourselves up for long-term success, sustainability for growth is also important. So that process is repeating phase 2, 2A specifically. Again, either with a new class or mode, right? The mastery stays the same. Or you could go through the path of ascension and just repeat the same class and same mode and just master your skills and so on and so forth, right? So that it really, really sticks. I think that's the big thing is that, you know, two people could do the same program and both people can have a different experience. Just based on how much of that program that they've completed, how much of the learning experience was retained from that, right? And also each individual's particular goals, right? Maybe one person has a wants to lose 50 pounds and the other person wants to lose 15, right? Doesn't quite make sense to have the same path of progression for both of these types of people, right? Um, but to finish off here, what happens after that is basically phase 4 plus, which is I call as the infinite path. And basically it's repeating phases 1 through 3. And how you would do that is by simply, again, choosing a new mastery, a new class, or a new mode, right? Again, there's dozens and dozens of opportunities for you to train differently, set new goals, and just experience new things, which is the essence of what we stand for here at Infinite, um, with gamification, right? This is the whole point of games, in a way, is to have fun. Number one, we want to have fun, going through experiences. Um, but at the end of the day, specifically like with RPGs, we're essentially having the same systems and mechanics, but they're just done differently, right? And when we tap into that, then that's when we can really go down this path of growth and sustainability, and of course, infinite progression. So that's basically the growth sustainability path going from phase 1 to either phase 2A or phase 2B, sustainability or growth, and then transitioning to either growth or sustainability in phases 3A or 3B, and then phase 4, repeating this process. To put it in perspective, I've been through this process, I can't even tell you how many times. I've been doing this for about 15 years. So I've probably been through phases 1 through 3, I believe 12 or 13 times. I can't even calculate all the times I've been going through these phases, but I was stuck with phase 1 for too long, and then not ever hitting phase 2 because I was always changing my goals too fast. So one moment I'm focusing on fat loss for like 2 months, and then another moment I'm focusing on building muscle for a month and a half, and another month I was focusing on this other goal. So I was pretty much stuck in phase 1 for a while until I realized like all the results that I've gotten trying to focus on these one goal and changing my goals went right down the drain. So learn from my mistakes. Go down a path of growth and sustainability, because that is going to be more fulfilling, it's going to be more rewarding, and you don't have to waste precious time um, going through this process repeatedly without retaining the results, learning from your experience, and so on. So that's about it. Interested to hear your guys' thoughts on the infinite path, growth, and sustainability. Again, this is just based on what we do here at Infinite and how we design it. I can't speak for other people. One thing I do know is that other people, other solutions out there. Don't think this far and this broad. It's really only in like one window of time. For example, just phase one, and then breaking it down like that. But for us, we again, that's what we stand for is long-term growth over short-term satisfaction. So yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts before we jump into questions to finish up the call. Is it clear? Is it unclear? Does it make sense? Where are you at on your growth, sustainability, progression? Pull up chat here. It's cool to see the breakdown of the paths. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people think about it this way. Um, just as humans, we get so focused on the now, right? And what's in front of us and what's not like broader than that. Danny, you mentioned how do you keep it up that long? Yeah, that's a good question. So again, part of the way that we've been able to do that is is with masteries classes and our different modes. Um, and each one of these things are a way for you to kind of create a unique experience every single time, right? Like if you're imagine the only goal that you ever had was fat loss, then yeah, it would be really, really tough to, you know, keep going for so long. You know what I mean? But if you have opportunities to improve your endurance, right? Or focus on building some muscle or building flexibility, or building your heart health, right? Specifically, or set some goals of like doing a 5K run or doing a tough mutter, or hiking up a specific mountain, or setting all these different types of like goals. It allows you to kind of challenge yourself in a lot of different ways, and I think that's a key to it. Is sure you can have these moments where you are setting these lofty goals or have this big vision, but then there's also those moments where you want to just practice sustainability so that you maintain the skills that you develop. So this process, of course, is fueled through goal setting, right? And variety and novelty and challenge, right? And that keeps us engaged, it keeps us motivated, and it keeps us constantly trying to achieve something more. And I think that's the key of how I've been able to do this for over 15 years. There's, a lot of ways that I challenge myself, uh, things that would have never thought I would be doing, like, you know, doing runs and like, hiking up mountains. I grew up in the city. Like I never really thought about doing stuff like that. But now I do. I did bodybuilding competitions. I did powerlifting stuff with powerlifting and things like that. So there's always something new that or some way that I'm challenging myself. And I guess the last point I'll make is, something that I'm doing recently is doing the gauntlet, right? It's a completely new experience because I'm basically customizing my workouts on a day-to-day basis, based on how I'm feeling, how much challenge I want to have, and things like that. And I'm also doing that with limited equipment. I'm not currently going to a full gym, right? All I have access to is dumbbells, a treadmill, and some cable machines, and that's it. So this is a completely new challenge for me because I've always worked out in a gym, always. So I'm taking a step back and challenging myself in a different way by limiting my equipment and also not taking supplements. Um, which is again, I used to be a supplement specialist, so I know all the ingredients that you can put inside your body to improve all different kinds of things. But when you take that away, now this is a new challenge for me. It's like, can I get the same results that I've always been able to get with these limitations? So these little different variances and variables and differences and challenges and different goals are really what keeps me going. And I would love to hear more from you guys, like Olia, if you could chime in too, of why you've or how you've been able to, stick to these, the infinite path of growth and sustainability. Let us know, because I think it's different for everyone, and I think it's finding, what keeps you engaged, motivated, and focused on growth is what matters. Yeah, no problem, Mark. I'll make sure to drop the recording right after this so you can catch it. I enjoyed this conversation. I hope you guys did as well. Danny, you mentioned, how do you differentiate challenge from struggle? I was on a nutrition plan after less than a year. I couldn't deal with it anymore. Yeah, yeah, that's actually a really, really good question. I think the big difference between challenge and struggle is sustainability, right? There are sustainable challenges, right? And then there are unsustainable challenges, right? And how you regulate challenge is really dependent, again, on what life is kind of throwing at you, right? There's times when you want to challenge yourself, right? But then there's times when maybe sleep is down, stress is high, you have other obligations in life, right? And I think that's when challenge becomes struggle, is when it's above your capacity or threshold, right? And you mentioned being on a nutrition plan after less than a year, you couldn't deal with it. That is basically saying that sustainability wasn't built into that nutritional approach, right? Um, and I see this a lot with a lot of diet practices, like, for example, keto diet. A lot of people strategically use keto diet just for fat loss, but they don't realize that unless they make it their diet indefinitely, so for the long term, they're going to regain all that weight. And then a lot of people realize after being on a keto diet, for example, for a long period of time, they can't do it. They, don't feel well. They get too much, cravings. They go out uh, for a birthday party, have a piece of cake, and now, you know, everything is, changing, right? It becomes a struggle. So I've always been a proponent of having a long-term sustainable approach to nutrition. And I believe that is a cyclical approach. So having these periods of times when you have higher carbs um, and lower carbs, right? And these periods of time where you are have a you track everything every single day religiously, and then these periods of time when take a back seat and just track protein or something, right? So being able to kind of modify and switch things around to make it more uh less of a struggle and more of a controlled challenge is the delicate part of it. And I think that's where programming comes into play, because when you follow a program, it should factor this stuff in. And this is how you know whether or not you're following a well-structured program that's built for the long term, or a program that's not so structured, that's built for the short term, right? Short-term satisfaction versus long-term sustainability. So I hear you, Danny. I that was a problem um, when I first started as well. messing around with all different types of diet plans, workout plans, without really understanding what's going to work for the long term. So, all you said for the nutrition plans, a lot of the times there are too any restrictions and they're too rigid. Yeah, and they don't allow for real life to get in the way. So very understandable. Yeah, I agree. It was supposedly designed to be sustainable. It was supposed to become a lifestyle. Yeah, yeah, and I think a lot of diets try to preach that, but when it comes to implementation, for the individual and their values and their lifestyle prior to the diet, that's a big factor, right? It's going to be very difficult for the person to be on a keto diet if they work at a bakery, right? It's going to be very, very difficult because they literally see carbs every day, right? Is that going to be sustainable, or is that going to turn being on that diet a struggle, turn it into a struggle or a challenge that they have to adapt to? And I'll probably say 8 or 9 times out of 10, that person's not going to maintain the keto diet for a long period of time if their lifestyle is exposed to carbohydrates everywhere, right? So that was just an example of sometimes it's just not aligning with the person, um, and their current skill sets and their current goals and their current lifestyle, right? So finding the right approach, I believe is what we're doing here in the academy as far as having a customized approach and not something that's rigid, like keto, like boom, right? So you have to fit these parameters or you're not, or the diet's not going to work. I don't think that's a sustainable way to approach nutrition personally. So, uh, yeah, I have to say that, myself and a lot of the warriors here are doing pretty well when it comes to having a sustainable lifestyle around nutrition. And of course, if you go down this path of growth, this growth sustainability progression, then it's one way to assure that you're following a long-term approach that's going to be sustainable, right? Although you mentioned each person actually has gone through a program with Infinite Eats very differently. Yeah, yeah. We had people who are vegans. We had people who are on keto as well, um, and people who do paleo, do this, do that, right? And it's just a matter of optimizing what works for you, and of course, figuring out first what's gonna work best for you, right? Uh, Donut diet? No, there's no donut diet, but we love donuts. What? Oh wow, Olia, Olia literally said, "I love donuts." That's funny. Yes, we love donuts. We love cookies. We love all the delicious treats, and we believe that's um, something that everybody could have in moderation. Even the people who are on these keto diets and stuff like that. Um, Can't speak the same for the vegans, right? They don't eat meat, so can't say they can enjoy a nice steak or anything like that, like a donut. But I'm sure there's uh, plenty of things that they can quote unquote indulge in other than that. So, but I want to get to Mark's question before we head out here. Mark, you asked, what should your final target weight goal be? Should I just base it off of height and age, or are there more factors I should consider? Very, very good question. Short answer is it's very, very individualized beyond the external metrics. So it's basically going to be about how you look and how you feel. And that's always my gut kind of approach when it comes to fat loss, is that if you if you can visibly like grab body fat on your stomach or in certain areas of your body, and you aren't satisfied with that, then, you know, keep going on that fat loss journey, right? Like, until you can get rid of it, right? But if you lose 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, and you still got visible fat on you, but you are happy with your body and you're happy with how you look and how you feel, then yeah, just call it right there, right? Like, say, say you're happy, and then move on to another goal, right? So it's not based on your height or your weight. Of course, are there recommendations? Sure, but it's really about what you want to accomplish. And personally, I never wanted to be like a bodybuilder. Um, I've admired how they trained and how they looked. I wanted to have abs, but like once I kind of got to that point of wanting to build abs and kind of, uh, focusing on my fat loss mastery long enough, I realized that I didn't want to be, I didn't want to become a bodybuilder to kind of like endlessly go down this path, right? I just liked how they trained, I liked how they looked. So what I did was I kept losing body fat until I kind of were able to build my abs and look the way that I felt like looked best. And that ended up me challenging myself for the heck of it, being like, hey, okay, well, if I'm doing this fat loss thing, I might as well, challenge myself, right? I might as well just see how I look on stage, right? Like a bodybuilder, dude. And I did that, but I'm not a bodybuilder. I don't compete, like, I don't go down that path. I just kind of saw it as a challenge. And I'm like, hey, I wanna, get shredded. So best way for me to kind of do that is focus on this bodybuilding thing up for a little bit, and I did, and I got shredded, and then I moved on. So it's really about how you look, how you feel in your own skin, and really what you want to do with your body. It's different for everybody. So I hope that helped or answered your question, Mark. Hold on, I'm jumping in the chat. Uh, Olia, you said your nutrition targets are more important. Danny, don't hesitate to reach out throughout the week if you have questions about meals or anything. Yeah, Olia is, in a way, kind of like my nutritionist. So she knows a lot about nutrition. So she absolutely can help tremendously on the day-to-day meal stuff, shopping stuff, Costco runs, stuff like that. So totally agree. Oli mentioned muscle for you. Muscle for me equals strength. I like to feel and be strong. I know this will serve me as I get older. Yeah, 100%. And more muscle equals higher weight. Yeah. So that's literally like the opposite of what my goal was a long time ago, for fat loss, right? Olia wants to feel strong, right? And the process of feeling strong means building muscle. In the process of building muscle, you're going to also gain some body fat. So yeah, like, and this is why you want to be, going through these growth phases and sustainability phases, right? Because if you so happen to gain body fat, now you can shift to a growth phase by focusing on fat loss. And this is why it should be this evolving experience and not so, you know, strict, you know. Um, Mark, you said awesome. You said for sure. Abs is my last thing I want to change. My weight feels good where I'm at. Awesome. Dude, that's a milestone. That is a milestone, man. If you're happy with your current weight and how you look and how you feel, um, body fat percentage wise, awesome. Then now you can shift your gears to abs, man. And it's one of those things too. It's like once you have them, it's like it's you see why it was worth, the process and going through the challenge of acquiring them. So you're in the right place, man. Like, we got a lot of people, a lot of warriors, including myself, with abs. visible abs. We have Warrior Jasper. Wizard Jasper, Wizard Alex. Myself. Um, so you have all the tools, you have the support, man, to make that happen. So you're in the right place, man. Olia, Walt is the nutritionist. I'm the meal prepper. Yes, yes. uh, that is true. Well, awesome. I see this is exactly what I was talking about in the beginning of the call, like questions that lead to answers. Like, um, this is the value. Like all of these questions that we had and the conversations that we had today in the chat, so valuable. I can't wait to, you know, have the other warriors, watch the recording. Uh, I really hope you had a lot of value out of this conversation today, a lot of direction when it comes to moving forward and what the fitness lifestyle could be like for you of growth and sustainability. You know, uh, yeah, this is super helpful for me. Let me know what you guys think before we head off here. Did you get a lot of value today? Uh, what was the biggest takeaway for you for today? I'm curious. Biggest takeaway for you, or most valuable thing that you took with you today? Let me know in the chat. Time flew by too. Oh my god, man! Time flies when you're having fun. Feel the same way when I'm playing Final Fantasy. I look at the clock. I'm like, dang, I gotta go to sleep. Danny, to adjust hormones and whatnot to sustain. That's the thing. Yeah, yeah. Um, we really do kind of like wreck our bodies in a way, and we have to make sure that we realign it back to an optimal, sustainable level, especially amongst women. Um, one of the one of the very first clients I've had was a woman, and I had to learn that the hard way. uh, Not really knowing much about all the hormone regulation, menstrual cycle, and all that stuff. Like, so that was a humbling experience, well over a decade ago, of learning about the body and how fat loss affects hormones and things like that. So, very, very important stuff for sustainability. Mark, you said, I love that you guys preach have what you want within moderation. Of course. Of course. It's the only way, in my opinion. It's the only way to enjoy life, right? Without freaking suffering. Um, one quick story. There's a guy that used to go to my gym when I was training as a master trainer at 24, and uh, dude looked great. Like he looked like a fitness model. Awesome, awesome physique. And I was talking to him. I was like, hey, like he basically after a long period of time be going to the gym consistently over a year or so, I noticed that he looked almost like virtually the same. And I'm like, hey, like, what are you doing? And he basically ate the same thing every single day, no deviation, no cheat days, no birthday party, no birthday cake. He literally ate the same like six or seven meals every day. And when he told me that, it felt I just immediately had this feeling of like torture. I was like, "Oh my god." Like, you don't enjoy life at all. Like, you just like you don't enjoy it. Like, what do you enjoy? And like he couldn't even tell me because he's just like, I don't enjoy anything about nutrition, food, or anything. He just eats the same thing. I'm like, that's not how I want to live my life. Like, I want to enjoy things. Like, I want to like step out of my comfort zone for some moments, but also have the ability and the skill to get back to my old ways, right? Like, so it doesn't turn into a bad habit. And that's what I teach here because I really do think that's just not a that's just not how I want to live. Like, but hey, all power to him. He great physique, but like that's just torture in my eyes. Like no deviation, like same thing over and over again. Like, oh man. Even bodybuilders who are very, very strict with their diet, they even have, cheat meals. Um, they call them refeed days, right? When they strategically increase their carbs specifically and lower their protein and fats. They even have some type of deviation, but to literally just eat the same thing every day for years, oh man, that's rough. Um, but anyway, that was just a little side rant there. Uh, Dan, you mentioned if I could have done that, I might not have tried that awful diet plan. Um, and Ollie said huge trade off, definitely not worth it for most. Yeah, yeah. Unless you are getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to be a professional athlete, then yeah, eat the same thing every day until you become a world champion, and then have fun for the rest of your life, right? Like, but yeah, this guy was just literally just doing it just for aesthetic purposes, and yeah, it's a little unsustainable. But anyway, all right, guys, great chat today. Went way over time, but I'm glad to have had the opportunity to give you guys a ton of value today. Take it, use it, channel it, gain XP with it, share it, and yeah, let's have an awesome week ahead. Remember, 1% XP a day. That's it. Compounds to a level up over time. And yeah, as always, this is your Master Wizard Walt by your side as your guide on your Infinite Academy adventure. And I'll see y'all next week. Actually, no, I'll see y'all in Discord. That's what I'll see y'all. All right, Warriors. Peace out.